Okay, so if you clicked on the link, I'm assuming that you want to find out why there's such a difference between the graphs that you see. Well, you know, first of all, let me just talk to you about the graphs themselves. The first line you see up here is the original projection by Greenwood Lake. This was presented to the Greenwood Lake board back in September. And you can see it's a pretty flat line. It's a fixed rate. Greenwood Lake assumed for the 5 years they would, 193, 198, 195, 193, 188 in terms of student number in the conversion charter. The red line is the application, and the application assumed a much lower starting rate. We were concerned because the Greenwood Lake 8th grade class, we didn't feel we would get as many kids as Greenwood Lake projected, as well as some other factors like BOCES and other things. So our starting number with the application was here. It's flatlined as well, descending a little bit. One of the reasons why it almost kept at around the same number is because we put in a waiver in the application that allowed any Greenwood Lake student who applied to get in. That waiver was asked to be removed, so Greenwood Lake doesn't have preference anymore. And that would be the flat line if they had preference. As you can see with the purple line, now they don't have preference. They have to go into the lottery. All the incoming 8th graders would have to go into the lottery, so you can kind of see that drastic decline. The current projection is that purple graph that I just alluded to. Again, we started with just a little bit of a lower number than the application did, because we actually know how many 8th graders are applying to the charter. It's a lot less than what we had originally anticipated, and far, far below what Greenwood Lake anticipated. And the graph declines dramatically and then begins to level off because, again, different from what Greenwood Lake was saying and even what our application originally said, because the waiver was removed, then a lottery system is in place. And I'll explain the lottery system at the end. But there are three main reasons why, tuition-wise, our number is where it is right now, and I'm going to take you through those three important facts. The first is we have a much smaller number of 8th graders from Greenwood Lake that have applied to the conversion charter. Greenwood Lake anticipated having about 76% of their 8th graders, and their 8th grade class is about 69 students. So Greenwood Lake put in their projections about 53 students attending the charter, when actually there's currently 11 applications. So you can see that's a big difference. This is less than 20%. So you can see there's a big difference between what Greenwood Lake projected for their 8th grade classes, and they did this for 10 years, and what actually is happening. And we'll talk about the numbers associated with that in a second. Then there's a BOCES decision. BOCES decided to say that if you wanted to finish BOCES during your senior year, if you were an 11th grade student, then you either have to choose Warwick or Chester to be able to finish at BOCES. You couldn't take your senior year at BOCES if you were part of the charter school. So we feel that decision is going to have an effect on the number of students that are going to stay at Tuxedo, and that's going to overall then have an effect on the tuition dollars coming into Tuxedo. And then finally, number three, is we reduced the tuition numbers. The tuition numbers for the Greenwood Lake students that are going to stay at Tuxedo. Greenwood Lake projected an $18,311 cost per student, and we've reduced that to $15,255 per student cost, a savings in total per student of $3,056 per student. And you'll see how that plays out when I do the math in a second. So those are the three main reasons. Now let's go back to the graph and factor those three reasons in. The first is your 8th grade class. As I said, Greenwood Lake projected 76% of 69 students, which is approximately 53 students, and we have 11 applications. And what we're going to do is we're going to assume over the course of the next couple of weeks we might get 2 more applications from the 8th graders. So the Greenwood Lake number was built upon 53 students attending, we're projecting 13 students will attend Tuxedo, giving us 40 student difference. Okay, so it's a 40 student difference between what Greenwood Lake projected and what we feel we're actually going to get. And when you take those 40 students and you multiply that by $18,311, you get $732,440 as a tuition difference that begins to explain why Greenwood Lake's number is up here and our projection number is down here. That $732,000 takes a lot of that gap right up. The second reason for the difference between Greenwood Lake's projection and the purple graph is the BOCES decision. And we said the BOCES decision, we're assuming the BOCES decision is going to affect 10 students, and it's probably going to affect more. So we feel 10 is a very conservative number. If these students have to go to Warwick or to Chester to finish their BOCES, there's about 17 kids in the building right now. We're saying 10 are going to go to Chester and Warwick. So that becomes another $18,311 times 10, or $183,110 difference between the tuition dollars Greenwood Lake is projecting they're going to spend and our projection of tuition dollars we're going to take in. And then finally, the third reason for the difference in the projection numbers, and that is we're reducing the tuition from $18,311, as I just said, and it's going to go to $15,255. And again, that's a difference of $3,056 per student. And we're projecting 130 students. So 130 students at $3,056 gives us a total of $397,280. And again, that's a nice chunk of change between these two numbers. If you take these numbers, if you take 732,440, if you take the 183,110, if you take the 397,280 and you add those numbers together, you get a difference of $1,312,830. And that is the exact difference between these two graphs and projections. That'll be $1,312,830. All right, so that explains the difference. Now, let's go 5 years out. And if you look at our numbers 5 years out, Greenwood Lake 193, 198, 195, 193, and 188. If you look at our projections, we're about 143, 110. This one is what, 60, 72, 31, and then 22. It's a drastic reduction in the number of students that are going to be in the conversion charter from Greenwood Lake, and that is mainly due to the lottery. So let's take a look. One final piece. Let's take a look at how the lottery works out. So here is an example of how the lottery will work out for Greenwood Lake. Let's just say Tuxedo receives 20 applications from Greenwood Lake, from the Greenwood Lake 8th graders. Tuxedo also receives a total of 260. So 260 applications altogether, 20 of which are from Greenwood Lake for the incoming 9th grade class. The 9th grade class size is 100. By the way, we reduced this from 115 to 100 in hopes to reduce the financial impact to the surrounding districts. If there are less spots open, then there'll be less students attending from those districts. So we capped it at 100. From that 100, you got to subtract the 20 Tuxedo students that we're anticipating. That only leaves 80 spots available for the 260 applications. When you do the numbers, the Greenwood Lake chances of being selected from the lottery, it's 20 applications of the 260 in total. That's a 1 in 13 chance. This means that for every 13 students selected to attend Tuxedo from the lottery, one of those 13 students is from Greenwood Lake. Only one. And when you expand this out, Knowing that there's only 80 spots available, that translates into 6 students from Greenwood Lake out of the 20 applications being chosen from the lottery to attend Tuxedo. And that's the reason why we continue to see the decline in the numbers to eventually we're thinking we're going to be someplace between 20 and 25 students in total for the school. In total for the school, about 7 to 8 kids per class from Greenwood Lake 5 years out.